Simon Yates recently won the Giro d'Italia in emphatic style, one of the greatest Grand Tour wins of recent times, dramatically winning the race on the very same climb he lost the Giro back in 2018. This win marks his first for his new team setup at Visma Lease Bike, and it's a big one. Now you might think the difference between Visma and Jayco is in tyres, wheels, bikes, helmets. But what if the difference between the two teams is actually something much more simple? There wasn't a new trainer, different altitude camp, or better bike. What if the approach that helped him secure the Giro win this year was something far, far simpler? Something that both you and me could approach into our daily training and racing. Check out what Simon had to say about his team move in a recent Flowbikes interview.
I had 2 bad days going into the second rest day. But it also comes down to a personnel thing, because those days when I say I had a bad day, it was a really aggressive race, those 2 stages. And the first day I was not able to get any bid-ins from the side of the car for 50 kilometres. Whereas other teams, they have the staff on the side of the road where they can get every 10 kilometres they have personnel to give out bottles, but I'm waiting 50k, and it takes its toll, and then I lost time that day, and then I paid for it the next day. It was lucky that I had a rest day, but then I bounced back with a great performance in the T. It also comes down to a budget thing. These super teams, they have so much money and so many personnel, but at some point it just comes down to how many guys you have. Yeah, these are the small things, I'm talking about 1%ers, even less than 1%ers, but they all add up.
Big thank you to Flowbikes for that interview there, where Yates hints at a surprising factor that might have influenced his win at the recent Giro d'Italia. At his previous team, Jayco Alula, he says that budget constraints meant that he couldn't get the hydration and fueling he needed from the side of the road. Simply put, their team did not have enough staff to meet the requirements of the riders on those hot, long stages, where other bigger budget teams could have multiple soigneurs at different points along the race route. Let that sink in. There are guys racing the biggest races in the world who cannot stay hydrated properly. Even in the final week of a Grand Tour, where the podium is up for grabs, there are riders who are simply underfueling and underhydrating due to logistical concerns. This brings us to our problem and solution. As cyclists, we're told to fuel well, especially during long and intense rides. And that's true. Modern sports nutrition has shown that the limit we previously believed was 60 grams of carbs per hour for gastrointestinal absorption is well below what our true maximum absorption rate is, with riders now pushing upwards of 200 grams of carbs per hour, as seen in the Ironman series with Cam Worth. You have riders using optimal ratios of glucose and fructose to get their fueling absolutely dialed in. But here's the part nobody's really talking about. The more carbs you put in the bottle, the less your body actually absorbs. When you dump scoop after scoop of sugar into your drinks bottle, you're increasing the drink's osmolality. That's the concentration of particles in the fluid. High osmolality drinks, especially anything over 8% carbs, are hypertonic. These drinks sit in your stomach for longer and pull water from your bloodstream into your gut to help dilute them. So even when you are drinking, you aren't properly hydrating yourself. And this isn't backwards hat Dylan bro science. This has been shown in the papers as well. One landmark study by Vist and Maughan, 1995, showed that drinks with high carbohydrate concentrations significantly slowed gastric emptying, the rate at which your stomach passes fluid into your intestines. In their test, an 18.8% glucose solution emptied more than twice as slowly as a lower osmolality carb drink, meaning water uptake was much slower. To quote them directly, both osmolality and carbohydrate content influence gastric emptying of liquids in man, but the carbohydrate content appears to have a greater influence. So what's the solution? Could it be as simple as separating the fuel from the hydration? Well, that's what we've seen with many World Tour riders, including Victor Campenaerts and the riders at EF Pro Cycling. They use 2 bottles, one for carbohydrates and one for hydration. This allows them to hit their desired target of 100 to 120 grams of carbs per hour without compromising their hydration goals. Campenaerts has openly shared his approach on this. I drink 2 or 3 bottles an hour, one with high carbs, one just water. That's how I hit 120 grams of carbs without overloading on sodium or getting stomach issues. EF's nutritionist Will Gerling adds, in the mountains we aim for at least 1 litre of fluid per hour, sometimes more. But if you don't pair that with enough sodium, you risk hyponatremia or underperforming. And it's not just about the fluid. Sodium matters too. If you're drinking more to combat the heat or long, hard racing, then then you need to be replacing the sodium as well. Without the sodium, your body won't retain the fluid and you'll just end up more depleted than before. And what does this mean for the likes of me and you? Here's the takeaway. If you're using strong carb mixes in your bottles and not adjusting your fluid intake, you're likely leaving performance on the table. Or worse, setting yourself up for GI distress, bonking on the bike, and the dreaded cramps. Instead, what you can do is separate your fueling from your hydration. Use gels, chews, or a carb-only bottle. Pair that with a fluid or electrolyte-only drink mix. And to top it all off, if you've had the sweat testing done, match it to your sodium sweat rate. This might seem like a simple change, but sometimes in cycling, the smallest changes make the biggest difference. As we see from Simon Yates, he made a career-changing decision to switch from J Maughan, a team he'd been on for many years, to the Visma setup, largely due to the increased logistics around fueling and hydration. And if that's a big enough reason for Yates to change team, then maybe it's a big enough reason for you to think twice about your fueling and hydration strategy at your next race. So next time you're filling up your bottles, don't just think about the calories or the carbs, and know that's what's trending at the moment. Also think, if my body's eating all of this, what's it going to need in order to absorb it all? More carbs are great, but not at the sacrifice of your hydration. I'll leave a link below to all the studies cited in this video, and if you like this type of video, make sure to give it a like so I can make more of this type of content in the future.